could you just would you just share a little bit about yourself, give an introduction, who you are, how do we connect, and those kind of things.
All right. My name is Brent Shultz, and my wife Joan and I have been going to church here at Encounter for about a year. And my wife, because I was a teacher, a middle school history teacher, then I'm not doing that anymore. I do mortgage loans now. My wife volunteered me because I'm creative and like doing things with youth. So she looked for something that I could do, and she volunteered me before she volunteered herself. What a gal! But which is good because I had coffee with Journey and decided that we were going to do middle school youth, and it's been really good. It allows me to use my creativity with that age group, which I really like. So
Yeah, Brent is goofy, but a lot of these kids love him. It's pretty cool to see Brent. Even, I mean, we've only been going this year for a little over a month, and to see some of these kids the way they've really taken to you, it's I love it. I absolutely love it, and
they're good kids.
I'm
They're
glad
fun.
they are a lot of fun. But you mentioned that coffee date, Brent. One of those. Sitting down with you, and a lot of times when I do that with people, I spend less time talking about the ministry, probably than I should, but I like to get to know the person. I like to hear what has happened in their life, what's brought them to the church, how did all of this come to be. I like to hear their story, and I can tell you honestly that your story has, even in the short time we've known each other, has greatly impacted me, and just like the way that you've gone through things, difficult, hard things that we'll talk about in a little bit, and have remained faithful and focused on what it is that God has called you to do in your life is just it's an inspiration to me, to be honest with you,
Thank you.
and so I wanted to have you on here to talk about some of that. Could you would you mind to share a little bit of that story? I know we probably had coffee for like 3 hours that day, so we'll keep it a little shorter
Might have
than
only been
that.
2 hours and 45 minutes. Let's not
Yeah,
exaggerate.
yeah, maybe a little short of three
Pretty
hours,
close.
but would you mind to share some of the those things that you shared with me that day?
Yeah, the old things that I've dealt with that I wouldn't probably have chosen to go through, but we'll get into kind of why even things that are difficult can be made into positive. Dealing with death is something that I guess if there was such a thing as an expert, which there isn't because every situation is different, I have back in when I was going to college, my college roommate and best friend, I was best man the day after he graduated from college. And 13 months later, almost to the day, he died of a brain aneurysm when he was 23. So that started me off, being having a best friend pass away, something you don't expect when they're 23 years old. Unfortunately, I guess I kept on doing it, going through the same sort of thing. I lost a wife to a rare infection that got in her lung. It was like a fungal sort of infection, and she struggled with that for about 4 years before she passed away. And again, she just barely made 40. So that was a difficult, again, something that a little more unique, losing a spouse. I lost my mom in 2014, and she wasn't even quite 70. Never drank, never smoked, drank coffee. She walked every day, ate right, and all of a sudden she lost 20 pounds, went in and she had stage 4 cancer in both lungs. Just, we think it was due to radon, actually, just something that, so she was healthy. She was probably the biggest influence in my life growing up because I was adopted. So my parents were very influential in my life. And she passed away just suddenly. And then just in 2018, my son, Trey, that was 24 at the time, just started getting headaches. And he, when he was a little kid, had a brain shunt put in for hydrocephalus. But he was fine. He just started getting headaches and couldn't eat. And Trey's a kid that loved mac and cheese, Mountain Dew, chocolate Pop-Tarts for breakfast every day. He thought it. He told me, I don't eat breakfast. He said it's the healthiest meal of the day. And I said, Trey, Pop-Tarts aren't healthy. If you truly were eating breakfast, I would agree with you. But I don't eat breakfast usually.
Yeah.
And he did, so that was his argument. But he was in always to special ed classes, but he was a higher functioning kid. Everybody loved him, helped a lot of people. He just started getting really sick. And we went into the hospital and they did the surgery and took out part of the shunt. It turned out he had a rare infection that nobody had ever seen before. It had never been in the brain before in history. And the med center had the CDC involved, believe it or not, the top level. And nobody could figure out what it was. There was no case study. There was nothing. So all they did was tried to put this pretty nasty antibiotic in the brain. So you're basically putting in a nasty deal in to try to kill something that's even nastier. Mm-hmm. They didn't know what would happen by doing it. It had never been done before. The day after they put it in his brain, he went blind and he wasn't able to talk ever again. So I think I would have, if I would have known he wasn't going to make it, he lasted 41 days. He fought really hard, but he had 12 brain surgeries during that time. I didn't work during that time. My employer was cool and let me work from the hospital. And then the last 30 days, they told me not to work at all, and they paid me.
Wow.
I wanted to work because I needed something to do, but it was very nice of them to do that. But again, Trey and I walk like 5 miles a day, every day. So all of a sudden, I lost my walking buddy. I lost probably the one person that loved the same TV shows. He'd stay up late with me. He even watched Gunsmoke. I mean, some of you young people have no idea what Gunsmoke is. Do you, Journey?
I've heard the name. I'm probably more familiar with MASH. I don't know if that's in the same kind of.
Gunsmoke started in the 60s.
A little earlier, maybe.
It started before I was born, but it was the longest running show in history right now, 20 plus years. Yeah. So it was pretty famous show for the adults that are listening.
Yeah.
And he would sit up and watch Gunsmoke with me.
Yeah.
So basically, he was my best friend, and it was a big loss.
Yeah.
And just having to see him go through it, just a helpless feeling of not knowing what to do and not really knowing if he could hear me. We thought he could hear when I was talking, but he couldn't show me that he could hear. And his eyes were just kind of like a blank stare. It was a very, very difficult time to go through. I don't think I would wish anybody, if I had any enemies, and I hope I don't, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Right.
You wouldn't want anybody to lose their kids. So
yeah, I know that is, as a parent, you know, even I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and just as a parent, like I think the hardest thing in my faith journey at this current point is just being able to trust God with them, like in general. I mean, beyond. You know what you know, like if something happened to me, if something were to happen to them, and it's just like I can't imagine walking through that with your son such a young age. I have an aunt that and she's the aunt. Brent knows I'm a big time Notre Dame fan. She's the aunt that lives out in Elkhart outside of South Bend, and we would stay at her house to go to games, and she probably about 25 years ago lost her husband. You know, he was 45, 50, I don't know his exact age, but he was around there somewhere. Lost her husband, and just recently she has one son that is like a disabled adult that still lives with her, and then she just recently lost her other son to COVID, and he was I think 48, and it's just like, if I were to describe this aunt, I would literally probably call her like the sweetest lady in the world. Like it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible how someone that has walked through all of those things, you know, isn't bitter, you know, and has good reason to be at times, and so uh, I like to point to her, and even and what I see in your story is like, you know, sometimes we feel like if we're following God, good things, these bad things won't happen to us, and then it kind of throws off our perspective when bad things do happen, and you're like, what in the world is going on here? And it's just like, well, bad things do happen to good people, and that's the truth of the matter. But I think the bigger question, Brent, is how have you walking through that? Like, I can't even imagine the the decision before that surgery was even made. I'm sure that you didn't have much of a choice, but how do you even begin to process those things with your own child, and even how have you been able to persevere through all that loss? Like it almost seems like one blow after another that you've taken in your life, and yet to be quite frank, you're one of the most outgoing, you know, just friendly people in general uh, that I hang out with, and so it's like, how in the world do all of those things happen, and how have you done that? Like what? Yeah.
That's the $1 million question, I guess. If only I could get paid
Right.
$1 million for the answer. But if I did, I'd give it most to church and charity, though. Okay, so,
It's
but
all right.
anyway, you're right. We didn't have any plan because all of a sudden he had the surgery. He came out of it, and they told us this. They told me to come in, and the infectious disease doctor was there, and he said, "We don't know what's going to happen." I said, "Can you give me odds?" And he said, "No." Said,
Wow.
so basically, you can't even give me 5.95, and his exact quote was no.
Wow.
So I tried to play the Moses, or I mean Abraham sort of thing. Like if there were 5 in the city, taking it down, I took it down to 5, and he couldn't even give me a 5% chance of success. So
Mm.
there wasn't much of a choice.
Yeah.
But just to add one other thing that's added to this, that is my daughter is diabetic.
Mm.
So when she was 23 months old, she got chicken pox and got, juvenile diabetes.
Wow.
So I've seen her on the doorstep of death at least 3 or 4 times, where she was at 24 level, woke up in the morning. One time she was basically purple. And I took her to the neighbors to try to revive her, and it took like 6, 7 hours, and the doctors didn't think she was going to make it. So it's easy to say, why me? But look at Job, right? Even Job
Right.
asked God, why me? He was faithful. So there's inspiration in the Bible for it. Doesn't make it any easier. But first off, I always think of people, there's always people that have it worse. I always try to put that in my mind, because if you all say, why me? It's me, why God, why this, why that? Then I'm always worried about what other people are going to see. And Christians are already bashed enough by being hypocrites and other things by other people. So if we allow things like that to happen, the worldly sort of temptation to do that, and the temptation is there, definitely, then you're not leaving a good legacy for that person that's left behind. So things that I did, number one, keeping occupied is key. I mean, truly, I am in a group called Toastmasters. It's an international group where you do speeches. One day he had a surgery in the inner brain, which was the most dangerous of all of them. The surgeon didn't think he was going to make it. So in the morning, I basically couldn't sleep. I wonder why. I got in the bathtub and read a good book. And I was in there for 4 hours and the water got cold, and I was so numb to the whole thing that I didn't even warm up the water. I was just sitting in this cold tub reading a book, and finally I get a call saying he made it through the surgery. When he made it through the surgery, that he had another surgery the same night because his brain kept filling up with fluid. So I went and did a speech. My daughter and I went and did a speech at Toastmasters that night, and I was in tears, but I did 2 speeches for that group. One, 10 things that people say that you wish they wouldn't. So you kind of say 10 things that I'd like to strangle you if you say those to me ever again. But as negative as it was, I always make people positive. If you're going to bring people down, you have to make them smile too. And I use my sense of humor. So even when I'm down, I always had my sense of humor as a big blessing that God gave me. So I said, even though you did these things, like one of them is, how are you doing? Or how is your son doing when he's in the hospital? I'm thinking, really? You know that he's probably not going to live. He's going through all these brain surgeries.
Yeah.
He can't see, he can't talk. How do you think he is? How do you think I am? You want to strangle them.
Right.
But they don't know what to say. We all put our foot in our mouth. I do the same thing. I've learned to do a better job. I'm hoping when I'm dealing with people, I won't do the same old habits that I used to do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they still love you. They care about you. They're there and they're asking. And the fact that they're asking, even though you want to strangle them, one thing I tell people is try to be patient, because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. So when you go to, like when we had the funeral, the viewing, all the people come in a big line and the family's sitting there dressed up in a monkey suit and tie, and you're just tired and you're exhausted and you just want to go home. And they're all shaking their hand and giving you a hug, and they all say the same thing. And I told my daughter, I prepared her for it. I said, they're going to ask this. So you just graciously accept that and you thank them. The other thing is you cannot turn down the offer for help, because people will say, the typical thing is, you look like crap. Have you got any sleep? Duh, no. You look like you haven't ate. Well, look at the gut I have. I probably don't need to, right? I'd usually say, but thank you. Or have you got out of the room? No, I haven't, So the fact when somebody comes and wants to go for a walk or go down to the cafeteria, you want to say no. But your loved one, they can get a hold of you. It's okay to go down to the cafeteria and get out. You have to get out. You can't stay there constantly. I tried to do it, and I'm still alive, clearly you can see, but it was very hard on me.
Would you say like when somebody's offering help, I mean, would, like, if they were on the outside looking in, trying to be helpful, because I've been in this position myself where I usually say, let me know if there's anything I can do. Would you say that there's, being more specific is a little bit helpful, or just suggesting something? How would you?
From the person that's asking, yes. Because if you say, could I mow your lawn, or could I help out with something like that? Believe me, that was one of the best things people did for me. Because I was at the hospital. My wife and daughter couldn't do that. I didn't want them to do it. So if somebody would have asked me, can I send my son over to mow your lawn Saturday or Sunday? What day works best?
Yeah.
That's much better than leaving it out, because can I help you with the lawn? You just automatically say no, because you think you're imposing on them. If they say, can I bring you a dinner? Even though a lot of people ask that, but that's great, right?
Right.
Just say, how about Wednesday night? Or what day this week is nobody coming over?
Yeah.
And then the best thing you can do is maybe ask, is there any dietary sort of things? Because I have to admit, I'm very picky. I'm a Iowa boy, go Hawkeyes. Meat and potatoes, vegetables, but only peas, beans, potatoes, carrots. I like lima beans, though.
I think you said enough. You just counted potatoes as a vegetable. I think that tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, I like other things too, but if it was meat, pizza, steak all the time, I'd be fine with that. I don't like broccoli and things like that. So if people brought that over, it would go to waste. Now, my wife and daughter would have ate it.
Yeah.
But then I would have felt left out because I wouldn't have got anything.
Yeah.
So it's nice when they say, hey, is there anything you don't like? So then I could tell them what I like, what I embarrassingly don't like so much. I could tell them. So always be specific when you're asked. It's much easier. You make it easier for that person dealing with the illness or the death to say yes.
Yeah.
And then make sure if you're on that side when they're offering, that you do say yes, because they don't know what else to do. And the things that they're offering to do, it's not like they're going to pay $1,000 to do that. They're just little things that they want to do. We all want to feel like we're helping somebody. I think just if we have a heart, we don't know what to do, but we want to do something. So just by saying yes to those things, you're letting them, feel like they're important, that they're really making a difference, instead of just saying, nah, I'm fine, I don't need anything. Thanks for asking, though. And then you leave and say, I should have said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Too proud to ask. I've had to learn to accept the blessing sometimes.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson to learn. And when you've gone through it a few times, I guess you morph a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like evolution, and evolution's not a bad word. It's not how everything got here, right? But things evolve.
Right.
So we evolve, just like a tadpole to a frog. We learn as we go. We hope that we learn from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and move forward. And I've certainly made enough mistakes, but I learn, and from other people, and just from reading and experiencing this firsthand. I'm not an expert. I'm always there for people, but I'll be the first to tell people I've been through all these different things, but no situation's the same.
Yeah.
So I will listen to people first, and whatever they need, I'll be there for them. If they say, what did you do? I'll say, this is what I did and what I didn't do. I can't guarantee that it's going to work for you, but you can certainly start there.
That's really I think that's really important, and I think I said it to the middle schoolers a little bit ago. Um, I may go through the exact same thing you go through, and it may not affect me at all, but vice versa. Like, there might be something else that is like not a big deal to you, and it's like the biggest deal to me. And sometimes we get this idea in our head. Well, it's like I have to, like, they're feeling like I would feel in that situation, like we're trying to be empathetic or whatever, but the reality is you can't really truly be. You can try to be empathetic, and I think that's a good thing to try and do, but it's very difficult to truly walk into someone else's shoes, because the way that things happen, the way that we understand the world is different, and the way that we deal with things is different. So I think that's one of the biggest qualities I see, Brent, is that even though you've experienced all this loss, you still take this road of, well, I don't know everything about it, and I can maybe offer to help, and but I think if we were just to listen to people and put that across the board in any different scenario, I think we'd see a lot of improvement.
If only.
Absolutely. So you've you shared a little bit about what particularly that you did, to walk through your own loss, but I think there's a different kind of loss that's happened, and I don't want to gloss over the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have died from COVID. I want to gloss over that, but there's also this loss that I don't even know that's fully been felt yet, of a whole couple of years of students that aren't going to be able to talk about their prom when they get older, or aren't going to be able to have that that memory of what it was like to have senior night at the football game, or whatever. You could fill in the blank with whatever these things are, but all of those things have been lost, and right or wrong, that's what has happened. And I don't even know that, as an 18, 19-year-old, I don't know that I would have particularly cared a whole lot, but I think that would have more of an impact on me, as I got into my later 20s, and went on. Like, so what would you say to those that are maybe dealing with that? Maybe like this thing, I've lost these things, and maybe not, it's not a person. And I think we can all agree that those are the hardest, those are the most serious things. Like, we're never going to see so-and-so again. But I don't think we can minimize the fact that these losses of different events or experiences that are really like rites of passage in a way have happened. Like, what would you say to that group of people?
Well, I did something that during when Trey was ill, I posted several times every day on Facebook, social media. I used it, and because of it, those memories pop up
Mm.
a lot.
Mm.
And my wife told me at the time that was going to happen. She was right, but I did it because people all over the world, people shared it, and there were prayers coming from people in other countries
Mm.
because of it. People shared my posts and my videos and the pictures I would post about Trey. So people all over got to know him, but I might have paid the price because my heart hurts when I see these events
Sure.
show up. So as far as advice with it, I think you can still celebrate certain things, certain events when they bring tears to your eyes. I mean, I'll be going for a walk and a memory will come up and I'll remember, his birthday or some event that happened or what would have happened down the road.
Mm.
And those things are difficult, but I tried to celebrate the events that I had,
Mm.
which is not easy. And you can adopt, not literally, but there's always somebody in your church or somebody from work or a friend that has people that are similar age. And for me, I've gotten closer to my sister's kids up in Minnesota, and my best friend in St. Louis has two kids about the same age. And I guess I kind of lived the events vicariously.
Mm.
And my daughter, that's 23, I think you appreciate the events that she's going through more. So
Sure.
if you have another child that's younger, I think it brings you closer to them where you really see those things. But it is okay. Nobody's going to tell you no, that it's totally okay to experience those events with somebody else, another close friend. And they can almost become almost an adopted son or daughter, so to speak.
Mm.
What kid doesn't like to have somebody else come to their events and cheer for them
Sure.
and give them a hug or a high five or a fist bump or whatever it would be with COVID?
Yeah.
But I try to do things like that, and that really helped. It's not going to take away everything, but just remember there's other people. The other thing is volunteering.
Yeah.
You volunteer for people that may not have those parents, and those kids, again, it's not the same, but you're making a difference in those kids' lives. So, like youth group here, or there's all kinds of other things like Big Brother, Big Sister. There's all kinds of things like that.
We actually had a couple episodes ago. We had I don't know. I don't remember his term. It's in the episode. But he oversees a nonprofit called Center for Champions, which he kind of describes as the Christian version of Big Brother Big Sister over in Harrisburg, and it's a pretty cool thing. So
yeah, those people, like I say, you're not replacing your grief, but you're turning. For me, you always have to turn negative into positive, because the legacy. If you want to create a legacy for your loved one, and I always thought, what would Trey want me to do?
Mm.
It's almost like what would Jesus do, but what would Trey
what
want me to do? So some of the things that I've done to create the legacy are raising funds and awareness for infectious disease, which this is before infectious disease was vogue, right? We hadn't heard of COVID when he went through this in 2018.
Right.
Not too long after that,
Yeah.
here, the doctors were saying infectious diseases over the last 5 years were growing, but they never dreamed that the whole world would be brought to its knees because of something called COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm raising awareness and funds for Nebraska Medical Center. I go out and speak. I've done a 5K. I'm going to be doing a virtual 5K coming up sometime maybe in November. I'm going to do a trivia night. There's a lot of things I'm trying to do. And these are things that I told Trey at the end. I said, when I told him you can be with Jesus, when he was in hospice at the end, and we knew he wasn't going to make it, or it would have taken a major miracle anyway, I said, Trey, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to turn this into a positive. and I have a memorial fund in his name for the hospital. So the doctors there remember Trey. I have lunch with these doctors. They didn't save him. I could have every reason to not like these doctors, right? Say, you blew it. You didn't save him. But because I got to know them, they really loved Trey and they really got to know me, and they did everything they could. One of the doctors came in and told me when we decided we were going to take the tubes out and not do any more surgeries, he said, my wife and I were up all night last night crying, and we both said that if I could have saved him, I would have rather died than to have this guy die. And I said, doctor, don't do that. Don't ever say that. You are so important to so many people. But he was crying, and I said, I didn't know if you had a good bedside manner. I knew you were one of the best neurosurgeons. And when he did that and was crying, I said, you do have. I said, I take back anything I thought. You have an amazing bedside manner.
Yeah.
He shut the door, the lights were kind of dim, and he just started crying, and in a room with me. And that's hard to see a doctor that's trying to save your loved one break down like that. But
yeah,
you have to make a difference. You got to make a legacy. It's one of the ways to turn a tough time into something positive. And then other people see that too.
Yeah, I think Paul says something to that effect. He talks about being on. It'd be easier for him. It'd be better for him to just go be with Jesus. But he says something to the effect of, for your sakes, I believe that I'm supposed to remain alive. I'm supposed to remain here on earth so that I can continue to share the gospel. And I think it's important that you recognize that purpose. Like I think about stuff sometimes, and I'm like, how do people, how do people that just want to make a lot of money or build a business so big or whatever the case is, like, how does that purpose, like, ultimately keep them going? Because I feel like for me, it would be hard for me to continue along something like that, to feel like it really did have meaning. And I'm not saying building a business is a bad thing. I think like I'm just kind of generalizing, like that being your main pursuit. And I think for me it's a little bit easier to see that when you recognize, hey, my purpose is to. A couple of years ago, I wrote something down to the effect of like to help young people to see their gifts, talents, and treasures, and how they can be used to glorify God. And when you have a purpose like that, it's really easy to, it's a little bit easier to get up in the morning. And I'm sure, Brent, that there were days that it was not easy for you to get up in the morning. But I think ultimately, being able to have that sense of purpose is what truly gives any of us, the ability to get up and to do what it is that we're doing. And so I appreciate you sharing this. I know this is some hard stuff that you've gone through, and I know that you share some of this on a regular basis. And I think what you're doing to raise funds and to create this legacy for Trey is phenomenal. And I believe, at least, looking from the outside in, that Trey would be very proud. And I'm glad I've gotten to know you, and I appreciate you jumping on here with us. All right, Brent, before we jump off, would you mind sharing, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, if there was the med center down the street in Hershey, somebody was listening and they want Brent Shultz to come speak to them, how would they get in contact with you? And I know that this organization that you are raising money for this research is a big part of what you're doing. And so if you could share, if somebody wants to give towards that, how would they do that?
All right, so you can go. There's a website. It's Engage, so ENGAGE PennStateHealth.org. And is that a / or a backslash?
That's //
I thought so. Trey Shultz. So I'm going to do it again. ENGAGE.PennStateHealth.org / Trey Shultz. So it's TreySchultz. So that's the way that you can give. I also, just to do a plug, I do wraps. So if you want to wrap for a special occasion, you can text me or email me, and I donate it all right to the research. So I do a wrap on any occasion for anybody. You give me some dirt about somebody, I'll write a silly rap and dress up for you, and you donate whatever you want. I usually say 25, but you can do whatever you want, and it goes straight to the research at the Med Center.
Oh, that's awesome.